Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to this all 60s happy hour. Now I'm going to start off with a tune that's one of my favourite 60s tunes, but it's a little bit of a tricky one to sing. It's got a lot of high notes, so I might need some help. We'll see how we go, hey. There is a house in New Orleans they call the rising sun, and it's been the ruin of many a poor boy, and God, I know I'm one. Oh good, I've got some help here because I wasn't going to get these next high notes.
My mother was a tailor. She sewed my new blue jeans. My father was a gambling man down in New Orleans.
Helping you with those low ones.
Thanks.
Should we do the last verse together?
Yeah, why not?
Let's do it.
Oh, mother, tell your children not to do what I have done. Spend your lives in sin and misery in the house of the rising sun.
Those some low ones though. Thank you, Jasmine. I needed your help on that one. Welcome to the happy hour to you and to everyone here. I've got a beverage. You got a beverage? We're all good to go. Cheers to that. Now, I'm guessing you've probably got better things to do than listen to your father play for another 55 minutes.
Yeah, and some of those lyrics were a bit low for me. I can't speak
Bit low for you? Yeah.
Low for me, so I think I might head out now.
I think so. But thank you. I do appreciate that. I've turned your microphone down so it doesn't go clunk. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Say bye, Jasmine. Bye, Jasmine. All righty. That was our opening number. That was the Animals from all the way back in 1964. That was, of course, the classic House of the Rising Sun here on the Happy Hour. Welcome. I hope you're doing well. I will jump in and say g'day. Get that microphone sitting right. Jump in and say g'day to the folks who are kind enough, as always, to be here live and say g'day to us here on the Happy Hour, and then we'll jump in and play some more tunes. Just need a quick camera adjustment. Oh, nothing but classy here on the Happy Hour. That's my pan. You just push the monitor back a little bit. Hello, Chad Morgan. You were here first. You are here first. Welcome. Rockstar, looking forward to this. Hopefully I can deliver on that. Montreal checking in, Battalion 58. Wouldn't be a stream without you. We've got Ruidos Lele from LA. Good stuff there. Hello from Denver. Stuck in the 70s. Well, won't you enjoy next week's? But we're all 60s this week. But next week, it will be living in the 70s. Let's see who else we got here. We have got Derek Smith. Thank you. Both confidence and talent. The future right there. He's hoping. Because, then I can retire and, just ride on her coattails. That'd be super fun. Jade Star, hello to you. And well done, young lady. Indeed, good job. Jazz, we are just getting started here. As I said, that was our opening number. I don't think I even tuned my guitar, but that's all right. It's the 60s. It's rock and roll. I'll get back a little bit too. So I've got some room to play. I'm not quite so close up on the microphone. If it's your first time here, though, you're thinking, who's this bald guy and what's he doing here and what's this all about? Well, this is our weekly live show. It's a live music chat show is the way that I describe it. Usually I'm playing my own songs, but this week we're playing some tunes from the 60s and the decade. If you were around then, you probably remember and reminisce about some of these songs. If you grew up in the 60s or with 60s music, or if like me, you grew up in the 80s with parents who grew up in the 60s, you were probably introduced to a lot of these tunes at an early stage. So that's the sort of thing that we'll be going into here today, and we'll be going through a bunch of songs. I'm just going to shimmy some things around on my screen here to get organised. Now, we will be missing a bunch of things. We've got 1 hour, and I'm doing 10 songs in 1 hour, so I can't cover the dozens, hundreds of great artists and bands from the 1960s, but I'm going to do the best I can. So if your favourite artist is missing, I apologise. We're not going to be able to do it all. And in fact, we're going to start. Well, that was our opening number. We're actually going to jump back now, and we're going to jump to 1958. Which is weird because it's a 60s show. But one of the artists that I really think needs a lot of credit for the 60s sound was a guy called Chuck Berry. And he was around in the 60s too. But one of my favourite Chuck Berry tunes, which I'm going to attempt to play here, I'm learning it at the moment, we're going to attempt to play it, is a song called Johnny Be Good. It's from 1958, and to me this kind of was that transition period where we went from the doo-wop and the low-key sort of slow stuff of the 50s into the more energetic rock of the 60s. So let's see if we can give this one a go. We'll add a little bit of delay just to hide those bung notes that Pete hits, and let's try this tune. Johnny Be Good. Good start, Pete. Deep down Louisiana, down in New Orleans, we're back into the woods among the evergreens. There stood a log cabin made of earth and wood, where lived a country boy named Johnny Be Good. He never ever learned to read or write so well, but he could play the guitar just like he's ringing a bell. Go, 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 Johnny, go, 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 Johnny, go, 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 Johnny, go, 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 Johnny, go, go, Johnny Be Good. He used to carry his guitar in a gunny sack, go down beneath a tree on a railroad track. All the engineers would beat him sitting in the shade, strumming with the rhythm that the drivers made. People passing by would stop and say, oh boy, that country boy could play. Go, 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 Johnny, go, 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 Johnny, go, 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 Johnny, go, 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 Johnny, go, 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 Johnny Be Good. Oi, oi, oi. Yeah, that's a work in progress. It's a tough song to play because, you know what? Chuck Berry was a fairly decent lead guitarist, and trying to play the lead guitar and the rhythm guitar and, yeah, make it sound okay on one acoustic guitar, not the easiest thing in the world to do. Now, you notice that I've started on the Mount Franklin sparkling water. We will kick into a beer because it is the happy hour in just a little while. But because these are songs that I've been learning that are not my own songs, I need to make sure I remember how to play them. And if we have a beverage too early, that's probably not going to happen. Just quietly. Rightio. Metallian, born in 50. I thought you might like that one, Metallian. You are Metallian 58, so I was wondering if you were born in 58. And it looks like that is the case. Happy Sunday. I'm so lazy. Yes. Hello from Florida. We got Lil Doobie from Florida. Hopefully not the Doobie Brothers, or maybe you are the Doobie Brothers. One of the Doobie Brothers. I don't know. Were they in the 60s or were they 70s? Did they start in the 60s? I don't know. Red, Desolate Mornings here saying red. I will get the proper red in a moment when we'll have a beer, but we'll have a quick drink. And we'll continue on here. So we're going to take a bit of a tour. Now that we've gone back to 58, let's sort of come back to the early 60s, shall we? And there was a guy who started mainly in the 50s, pretty popular guy, had a few sort of number one records, just a couple, maybe 50 or so, in the 50s and 60s. Guy by the name of Elvis Presley, ring a bell for anyone? Yeah. So I'm going to play. After that one, I thought in the set list I need to slow down a wee bit, so I am going to slow down. I'm going to play a little bit of a laid-back tune. This is one of my favourite Elvis tunes. I'm stalling for time because I'm trying to bring up the lyrics here. I've lost the first verse. Come over. There we go. First verse. I should remember these because I've heard this song probably a couple of thousand times in my life. But this is a tune from the man, the legend, Elvis. This is Can't Help Falling in Love from 1961. Wise man say only fools rush in, but I can't help falling in love with you. Shall I stay? Would it be a sin if I can't help falling in love with you? Like a river flows surely to the sea, darling, so it goes. Some things are meant to be. Take my hand, take my whole life too, for I can't help falling in love with you. Like a river flows surely to the sea, darling, so it goes. Some things are meant to be. Take my hand, take my whole life too, for I can't help falling in love with you, for I can't help falling in love with you. The one and only Elvis Presley. That was a good tune to catch my breath, because after Chuck Berry, we slowed things down a bit. And speaking of that, so I like that tune because it that was the bridge, I think. That was 61. That was the bridge between 50s and 60s. I think that we had... we had the 50s sort of rock and roll. We had Chuck Berry and Buddy Holly starting to rock it out a bit. And we also had sort of the doo-wop bands of the 50s as well. And Elvis was a bit of a crossover. He could rock and he could doo-wop with the best of them. So I like that tune. I think that's a good gateway between the 50s and 60s. My mic's getting droopy. Nothing worse than a droopy mic. Alrighty. Yes, you might need your lighters here today. There's going to be a few lighter-worthy songs because the 60s was a bit that way, wasn't it? It did have a few of those sort of tunes. Speaking of which, let's move on. We're jumping a little bit here because we've only got an hour. I'm going to jump into the mid-60s and then head into the late 60s as we continue on here. Are we for time? Yeah, we're already 15 minutes in. So if you were like me, a lot of the 60s tunes, as I mentioned at the opening, were introduced sort of through, it was something here in Australia called the Saturday Night Jukebox, the 6 o'clock rock. It was 6 o'clock on a Saturday, and between 6 and midnight, they would just play jukebox hits like from the 50s and 60s for 6 hours, and that's where I was introduced to a lot of tunes. There was another way I was introduced to tunes of the 60s, and that was through American TV, particularly a show called The Wonder Years. Any Wonder Years fans out there? Fred Savage show from the 80s? Yeah, so I was growing up in the 80s and watching these 60s shows like The Wonder Years, and there was a lot of cool tunes in there, and I'm like, hey, that's a cool tune. And then I realized it's not actually from the time period, it's from 30 years ago. So this is one such tune, and funnily enough, this is by a band called the Byrds. It's a song called Turn, Turn, Turn from 1965, and the names of the bands in the 60s were dominated by animals. We'll talk about that a bit more in a moment. And by the way, I do want to invite you to share your favourite artists, your favourite 60s moments, your favourite 60s tunes. If you're here live on Facebook or YouTube, drop those down in the chat. If you're watching on the replay, drop a comment. I want to hear your 60s stories. What were you doing in the 60s? Were you born, or were you like me? You weren't born, but you love you some 60s music. Let's share some of those 60s memories. But while you get those prepared and throw those in the chat and the comments, I'm going to play this tune, which is one by the Byrds called Turn, Turn, Turn. Knocking my drink. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, and a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to love, a time to hate, a time of war, a time of peace. A time that you may embrace, a time to refrain from embracing like now. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose, a time to rent, a time to sow, a time to love, a time to hate, a time for peace. I know it's not too late. The Byrds, turn, turn, turn on the happy hour. I feel like a radio DJ. I need to get up on the mic and do my radio DJ. That was the Byrds from 1965 with their track Turn, Turn, Turn. I remember twisting and shouting to that back in the malt shop, playing it on the juke. That's all. Sorry, that's all the 60s terms I know. It is time. It's time because I thought, if I get to the halfway point, it's not even the halfway point. If I get a few songs in, it is the happy hour, so we are going to be supported. They don't know they're supporting, but I thought this was the most 60s looking can that I could find in the shop, and this is actually a sour. It's an Achaean passion fruit sour beer from Pirate Life. Fantastic local brewer here in Adelaide. So cheers. I hope you are doing well. Alrighty, hello again to the folks who are here live. I hope you are doing well. We'll see what folks have here. Dana Luke is here. Hello to you. Lil Doobie, I think I've said g'day to you. Stuck in the 70s, Elvis would be proud. Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's one I've only just started playing. I was going to play, here's the thing. Here's the admission. I was going to play Suspicious Minds, but I couldn't hit the high notes, and I didn't have my secret weapon to help me. So it was like, we can't go on together. And I'm like, you don't want to hear that. No one wants that. That wouldn't be a happy hour. That would be a torture hour, which we'll get to in the 90s. Anyway, continuing on. Yes, and Elvis had that country thing going on. Yeah, that's true. He did do the country music thing. He even had Colonel Tom Parker was his manager for a while. Go the Wonder Years. I was thinking as you were saying it. Yeah, the Wonder Years introduced me to that tune, another tune that we'll be playing in a little while, and yeah, a bunch of other cool 60s tunes. Wonder Years was indeed fantastic. Yeah, a lot of love for the Wonder Years. Jade says, For the Byrds. Yes, I have a song called For the Byrds, which wasn't written for the band The Byrds, but let's just say it was. Pete said a lot of 60s 60s songs were named after animals. Yeah, the Animals was one of those groups. Yeah, exactly. We opened with an Animals tune, and now we're working our way through the Animals. For what it's worth, Buffalo Springfield, is that who wrote the tune? I don't know, or is that another animal? I'm not sure. Here's the thing: there was a lot of crossover. So because I'm not a 60s expert, I'm doing all these decades. There was a lot where I was like, oh, I'm going to play that song by those people, only to find out it was written 10 years earlier by someone else. So some of these may fall into that category. You can educate me on those things as we go through. Alrighty. Woodstock, the movie, was also a great intro to the 60s. Yeah, Good Morning Vietnam. Yes, Apocalypse Now. Yes, Good Morning Vietnam. Like, I had the soundtrack to that movie, and yeah, that had a lot of really good songs on there. Absolutely. Let's continue on here. I'll go back to my notes. I did have notes. I've gone a bit off script and a bit freeform. Let's just see if I said everything in the intro. Yeah. So I said that these are my favourite tunes. Apologies if your favourite tune or artist isn't there. And again, share your experience. Let me know what your experience is of 60s music, because it is cool. And once again, hang out every week. We're going to be here every week with another show. I didn't dress up. Here's the thing. I was planning on dressing in a bit of 60s garb for the show, but the problem is you can't go to thrift shops at the moment. And I checked the wardrobe and I went, yeah, there's nothing I can really pull together there. So I decided to just go with the Studio Live Today t-shirt. But yeah, maybe for the 70s I could find a little bit, or maybe Mum and Dad, I need you to raid your wardrobes, see if I can get some big collars and some like nice, not flares wouldn't really make much sense because you won't see my pants. Alrighty. So I do have some notes for some of these songs. Let me just... So that one there, Turn, Turn, Turn. So that was sort of starting to get a little bit of that, if you listen to the lyrics, a little bit of that political vibe, a little bit of that hippie vibe coming into the tunes. And I thought that, it was at that time in the 60s where it was the flower power kind of generation, protesting, that sort of thing. It was, we went from that early 60s sort of rock and roll, from the doo-wop, mid 60s. And then as we went to the late 60s, well, boy, you know what happened and you know where we went to there. Let's disappoint a few people and talk about some of the bands I won't be playing today, but I want to give a shout out to. So, yes, there'll be no Bob Dylan. I know if you're hanging out for some Bob Dylan, I apologise. I am not good at playing Bob Dylan tunes, and it would be a disservice. Plus, it wasn't really in my wheelhouse when I was listening to 60s tunes. Excellent songwriter, amazing person. I know all the rest of it, but yes, I didn't want to do a disservice there. Jimi Hendrix was obviously around in the 60s. Kind of hard to play Hendrix tunes on an acoustic. The Doors. Yes, another classic band. Cream with Eric Clapton, they were a classic band. They started in the 60s. You got your Creedence Clearwater Revival. You got Marvin Gaye. There's a bunch of others. We'll talk about some others later. But who is your favourite? Let me know in the comments here. I'd love to hear from you. All right, time has come. How far are we in? Yeah, it's 23 minutes in, and I haven't mentioned another animal, insect-related band. You know where I'm going. It is the Beatles, of course. The Beatles. That's my bad attempt at an accent. The Beatles. I shared this one on the channel during the week. It's a very cool song, and I'll talk a little bit about it afterwards and some of the meaning behind it, or not even that, but some of the musical stuff of it. By the way, I'm throwing off the headphones here. If my mix is not right, because I'm getting a hot head. So my music connoisseur friends, if I need to adjust the mix after this one, let me know, because it's getting a bit much, and I think I'll play better without my headphones. So let's jump in and play this tune here. This is a Beatles tune. It's usually played with some string accompaniment, but I'm going to attempt it using the acoustic guitar and vocals. This is Eleanor Rigby. I look at all the lonely people. I look at all the lonely people. Eleanor Rigby picks up the rice at the church where a wedding has been. Lives in a dream, waits at the window, wearing the face that she keeps in a jar by the door. Who is it for? All the lonely people. Where do they all come from? All the lonely people, where do they all belong? Father Mackenzie, writing the words of the sermon that no one will hear. No one comes near, look at him working, donning his socks in the night when there's nobody there. Why does he care? All the lonely people, where do they all come from? All the lonely people, where do they all belong? Ah, look at all the lonely people. Ah, look at all the lonely people. Eleanor Rigby died at the church and was buried along with her name. Nobody came. Father Mackenzie wiping the dirt from his hands as he walks from the grave. No one was saved. All the lonely people, where do they all come from? All the lonely people, where do they all belong? A very cool song. Not quite the same without the beautiful cello and violins and string section that was in the original. And that's what I did want to talk about a little bit, because the Beatles were not only one of the sort of most popular bands of the 60s, and not only did they get all the fans and the screaming and all that stuff. If you, and I know a lot of you already do this, but if you go behind the scenes of that and you learn about the recording techniques they used, some of the things that they pioneered in terms of multi-track recording, in terms of incorporating things, like we didn't have strings in rock music. Like you didn't have an album where you played guitars and bass and drums and then you had a break for a string. And now every single rock musician have their ballads where they bring in their strings and they do all that. So there was a lot of pioneering things going on from a recording point of view. And if you think back to those days, for those recording enthusiasts among you, which I know is many, and you think about when we're using, you know, an 8-track, 16 tracks, 32 tracks, 64 tracks to record our songs, Beatles had 4. So they had a 4-track recorder when they were recording these songs in the 60s. So what they would have to do is record 3 tracks and then bounce them down to 1, record 3 tracks, bounce them down to 1. They would have to do overdubbing and multi-layering, multi-track recording. And when stereo came in, which we'll talk about again in a bit as well, when stereo came in, they then had to work out where they put everything. So you only had limited tracks, and you could put things on the left and the right and balance those out. In fact, the original mix engineers were called balance engineers, because all they really did was balance the vocals. And then when stereo came in, they'd have to balance the volume. And then when stereo came in, they'd have to balance the panning in the left and the right as well. So yeah, just some interesting tidbits there about the Beatles. Glenn Clark, hello to you. Greetings, better late than never. Absolutely. Can always catch up on the replay. The Doors, yes, I know. I should play a Doors tune, but without the keyboard, without the organ, the Doors just not quite there. Yeah, it's a struggle. Trent Nentrup, yeah, lots of Hendrix, DC5, the Beatles, Herman's Hermits. Yes, Herman's Hermits are a great band. I don't have any Herman's Hermits, unfortunately. Hello, Roblox Heaven. Great job. Thank you. Appreciate you. Jeff Turner is here. Hello, Jeff. I hope you are doing well. And let's... yes. And Solrak says, I might need your help for something. I'm always here to try and help. It's a matter of time. So yeah, if folks have questions about the recording side and the technical side, I can certainly try and help. And yes, so I have my Q&A show every week, by the way. If you're watching this one and you want to learn about home recording and other things, I have my Q&A show. And you can go to studiolivetoday.com if you want to engage with me, ask questions, follow me on all the different places, etc. But today, it is all about the 60s and playing some tunes. Excuse me. Yeah, so Jeff says vocal from Eleanor Rigby swaps from one channel to another from memory. Yeah, and this was something, and is this the next song? Is this a good segue? It's not. But there's another tune I'll play later where I'll talk about that, and I'll talk about the use of panning in different tunes. Now, I couldn't mention the Beatles without mentioning another band, and you probably already know where I'm going with this, but there was another band around the same time who are often compared, and often you would say you are a Beatles fan or you are a Rolling Stones fan, but I just happen to be both. And maybe that's just because my natural tendency is to sit on the fence, but I like both the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. And my favourite Rolling Stones track happens to come from the 60s. They did span, like the Beatles, they spanned a lot of decades, and they're still going. I saw them playing on that concert from home this morning. So they had all four of them, and they had their own webcams in their own homes. So, copying some ideas here, right? But yeah. So Mick and Keith was propped up there with a stick, and yeah, they were playing and they were doing their thing. But yeah, they weren't playing this song, however, because yeah, this might be considered a little bit sort of darker. But this is actually one of my favourite songs. It's called "Paint It Black." It's from 1966, The Rolling Stones. I see a red door and I want it painted black. No colors anymore, I want them to turn black. I see the girls walk by dressed in their summer clothes. I have to turn my head until the darkness goes. I see a line of cars and they're all painted black, with flowers and my love both never coming back. I see the people turn their heads and quickly walk away. Like a newborn baby, it just happens every day. I look inside myself and see my heart is black. I see my red door and I must have painted black. Maybe then I'll fade away and not have to face the facts. It's not easy facing up when your whole world is black. No more will my green seagull turn a deeper blue. I would not foresee this thing happening to you. If I look hard enough into the setting sun, my love will laugh with me before the morning comes. I see a red door and I want it painted black. No colors anymore, I want them to turn black. I see the girls walk by dressed in their summer clothes. I have to turn my head until my darkness goes. And yeah, sorry if you wanted to, if you were waiting for the, I want to see you paint it. Yes, if I did the mixed screams at the end there, that would probably be the last song that I'd be able to play. So yes, there you go. The Rolling Stones, the Beatles, they had to both be in there, and they are in there. And maybe one of them will poke their head up again towards the end of the set. You never know your luck in a big city or a small city or anywhere in between. Thank you again. For those who are here, we'll just scroll up and see who we've got. Hello to Redos LA. Cheers. Happy Ron. How are you, Happy Ron? Producing the Beatles is a new podcast, which is one of the best ever. He hired a string quartet and horns to reproduce Strawberry Fields and broke it down. There you go. See, this is what I love about you folks in the community out there. You add to this, and this is why I do this as a music chat show, not just a music performance, because you can add as much to this as I do by playing the songs we can talk about them, we can learn from them, and we can have a lot of fun along the way. Derek says my favourite Stones track by Country Mile. Yeah, mine too. I do love, I love all the classic. I Can't Get No Satisfaction, Start Me Up, a lot of those sort of rocky tunes, but that one just has so simple, like E minor, B for the most of it. But then when it kicks into that chorus, I think it's very reminiscent of a lot of 90s tunes, and I'll talk about that a bit more later as well, because it's, it's true. It's true, Ron. It isn't a happy song, but it's a good one. So, yes, the 60s weren't all happy, and I know it is the happy hour, but we'll get back to happy soon. Metallian says, love the choices so far. Thank you, my friend. Laurie Jude, yes. Now, my guitar, can I position it higher so we can see the chord progression fingering? Yeah, let's bring the camera down a wee bit. I can cut off the top of my head so you can hopefully see a little bit. I'll move my beer can. Hopefully you can at least see my hand. It is hard with the setup I have here in the background and things, but yeah, very good point. So you can hear you can see the chords. Hopefully that'll be a bit better for you there. Trent Netdrup, hello to you. Thank you, Glenn Clark. Appreciate you there. Misha, what's some essential songwriting tips? Good question, and I will answer that in either if we have time in this or in another time. But I think the good thing about songwriting and listening to tunes like this, listening to these songs from the 60s, is you can learn a lot from what has happened in the past and what some of the best songwriters in history put in their songs. So maybe just listen in. We'll talk a little bit more about what other artists did when they did record in the past. Interesting that the Stones recorded a Beatles song, I Want to Be Your Man. Really? There you go. Again, I keep learning new things. And yes, Happy Ron. One of my dreams is that we'll play a Happy Ron song. Yeah, well, I do like if you're bored in San Diego, then I can't remember. It's been a long time since I listened to it, Ron. If you're bored in San Diego, then you're not trying hard enough. It's something like that. It was very cool. I remember watching the video and thinking that was very impressive. There you go. Hopefully you can see my hand, or I'll back off a little bit when we play the next tune, which I better work out what is. Because this, we may go over time. Just quietly, we may go over time today. Now, one of my favourite bands from the 60s they were the Beach Boys. All right, let's just cut to the chase. It was the Beach Boys, and a reason for that is that in the 80s, the Beach Boys had a bit of a resurgence. They came back into the scene, and they had some popular songs, some chart-topping songs, one called Kokomo, which you may know, one called Still Cruisin' after all of these years, and I kind of got into them. I dug the vibe, and then I went through the back catalogue and went, I really dig this. I love harmony. I love the four-part harmony, the sort of barbershop quartet-style harmonies that they had in there. I love the surf guitar. Yeah, you could say that they recycled a whole lot of different riffs, and most songs sounded kind of the same. But I just loved them. I loved the Beach Boys sound, and I had to play a Beach Boys song because they were huge in the 60s. And I'm playing this tune because many of you may know, I mentioned it in previous shows, but yeah, we were on a cruise ship recently. I know, don't worry, we're fine. We were on a cruise just down to Tasmania here in Australia, and funnily enough, it got turned around and sent back. So we got back and everyone was fine and everything's good. All good. However, it was very rough. And most of my family, except me, struggled quite a lot with the rough seas. And this is a song about being on the sea and having the worst trip that you've ever been on. So this is for my family who may or may not ever set foot on a boat again. We come on the sloop John B, grandfather and me, around Nassau town we did roam, drinking all night. Got into a fight. Well, I feel so broke up, I want to go home. So hoist up the John B sail, see how the mainsail sets. Call for the captain ashore, let me go home. Let me go home. I want to go home, yeah, yeah. Well, I feel so broke up, I wanna go home. First mate, he got drunk, broke in the captain's trunk. The constable had to come and take him away. Sheriff Johnstone, why don't you leave me alone? Yeah, yeah. Well, I feel so broke up, I wanna go home. Should we go up? Should we try it? So hoist up the zombie sail, see how the mainsail sails. Come for the captain ashore, let me go home. Let me go home. I wanna go home. Yeah, yeah. I feel so broke up, I wanna go home. Poor cook, he caught the fits, threw away all my grits, so sad. Then he took and he ate up all of my corn. Let me go home. Why don't they let me go home? Yeah, yeah. Well, this is the worst trip I've ever been on. Better stay down. So hoist up the zombie sail, see how the mainsail says. Call for the captain ashore, let me go home. Let me go home. I wanna go home. Yeah, yeah. Well, I feel so broke up, I wanna go home. And the funny thing, and what I think about when I sing the end of that song is, yeah, feel so broke up, I want to go home. This is the worst trip I've ever been on. And yeah, so the story, the other part of the story was we got almost to Tasmania. We were literally about to hit the coast where the captain came on. And this is why this reminds me. The captain came on. He's like, I'm very sorry, but we're turning around. We've been at sea for 2 days. Meant that we had to turn around and be at sea for 2 days. So we were at sea for 4 days going across Bass Strait to Tasmania in some of the roughest seas that I've ever seen. So yeah, it was the worst trip we've ever been on, but it's an experience, and that's the main thing. And we're here now, and it's something to talk about. So the Beach Boys, Sloop, John B there. Let's see what we have. So Cliff Richard recorded a Stones song as well. Blue Turns to Grey. There you go. Love that song. A rollicking sea shanty. Right, exactly. It's probably the only sea shanty type song you're going to have here. Metallian 58. Great song for a sailor like me. Well, you would have done an awful lot better on the boat, Metallian, I can assure you, because we didn't do so well. Glenn Clark, great song. For some reason, I never knew it was the Beach Boys. Yeah, it's not a Beach Boys-y song. I mean, it is. When you hear the original, you'll hear the hum. By the way, if you want to hear the original versions of this, at the end of the show, if you're here live, and already there if you're watching the replay, I've got a playlist which links to the 10 original versions of all of these songs. So if you want to relive it and rock out to these 60s classics as they were originally performed and rate how Pete actually did, you can go down and check that out after the show. Hello, T-Bird Telecaster. Must have the sustained 4 thrown in. Yeah, I like the sustained 4. Did I do it? I can't even remember now. Maybe if I didn't do it, then sorry. I've learned a lot of these this week. So some I already knew, most I learnt this week. So, yes. Thank you, Jade. Thank you, Battalion. Let us continue on. How are we for time? We've got us 18 minutes left. And how many tunes do we have left in the catalogue here? We have us 3 tunes. That's going to work well. 3 tunes, 18 minutes. I think we'll be fine. This is a delicious beer, by the way. If you're here in Australia, support your local Australian independent breweries like Pirate Life. Although, have they been bought now? I just said that and I'm like, something tells me that they might have been bought by one of the big guys. Anyway, they make good beer. All right. So good, I'm going to knock it over with my guitar. So I alluded to this earlier, that I was going to play a song. Well, I was going to play another animals-related song. Not by the animals, but by an animal. And this is an interesting song because it's a tune by the Turtles called Happy Together, another Wonder Years classic. The Simpsons use this tune a lot in a lot of their stuff as well. Homer's been dancing around to it a bunch of times. And what I like about this song is I think I like it because it's got a bit of a 90s vibe. And what I mean by that, and you listen as we play it, but it sort of goes from the minor, sort of soft bit, and then hits a major. Like you could imagine that if Nirvana or Alice in Chains or Soundgarden did a cover of this, that the Boss DS1 distortion pedal would be stomped on, and they would kick into some power chords for the chorus because it's got that feel of that 90s sort of rock sound. Anyway, Maybe that's just me, but let me know if you kind of get my gist or what you think of this one. This is a song, we're up to 1967 now. This is a tune by the Turtles. It's called Happy Together. Imagine me and you, I do. I think about you day and night. It's only right to think about the girl you love and hold her tight, so happy together. If I should call you up, invest a dime, and say that you belong to me, and ease my mind, imagine how the world would be so very fine, so happy together. I can't see me loving nobody but you for all my life. When you're with me, baby, the skies will be blue for all my life. Me and you and me, no matter how they toss the dice, it had to be. The only one for me is you, and you for me, so happy together. I can't see me loving nobody but you for all my life. When you're with me, baby, the skies will be blue for all my life. You and me and you, no matter how they toss the dice, it had to be. The only one for me is you, and you for me, so happy together. Sing along if you know the words. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Toss the dice, had to be. The only one for me is you, and you for me, so happy together. Oh, oh, so happy together. Oh, oh, oh. How is the weather? Ba ba ba. So happy together. Ba ba ba. So happy together. Ba ba ba. So happy together. Ba ba ba. The Turtles, part of the animal invasion of the 1960s. And another classic 1960s tune here on Studio Live today. We've got, thank you to Jeff Turner. Appreciate it there. Glenn is singing the harmony parts with me. Yeah, it's a really good point. One thing that is missing from a lot of these 60s tunes is they all had amazingly good harmonies. So I do implore you to go back and listen to the original versions. Spend the rest of the afternoon or evening or morning listening to the original versions from the 60s, because there's some great harmonies, there's some great guitars and drums and bass, and obviously things that I'm not going to be able to bring in here. Happy Ron's loving the happy stuff. Hello to my folks. Hello, enjoying the 60s. Thank you for tuning in. Some of my biggest fans over there. And Barry Tompkinson, very nice high vocals there. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I can hit those ones. They're just there. They're just under the top of my range. So, yes, I get there. Yes, and thank you too, again, to my folks who introduced me to pretty much every one of these songs. We had, I'll tell a quick story. Is anyone familiar with the Reader's Digest? The Reader's Digest collections. They had things like solid rock, and they had like all through the 60s and 70s and 80s, they had a bunch of different records and collection of records. So all of my knowledge of the 60s, 70s and 80s came from listening to the big LPs of the Reader's Digest. So they pulled together all the best of all the different decades. And I spent a lot of time as a kid sitting on the floor. Like, this was before the internet and before TV. I would sit and I'd get record after record out. I'd put on side A, side B, listen to the songs, find my favorites, then even learn, you know, that thing where you're trying to get it onto track 4 and you just have to learn to just slide it over and pop, drop it on. There's kids just going, I have no idea what you're talking about. But many of you are saying, yeah, I remember the pain of trying to find it. And cassettes, that was even harder. Fast forwarding to try and find track 4 on side B, nah, no good. We live in the future, people. Welcome to it. Righty dokie. Let's, what have we got? We've got 2 songs left and we've got 11 minutes. Almost like I planned it out to be exactly on time. Now, there's a lot. I mentioned all the different acts that would miss out here. I almost played a Simon and Garfunkel song for the penultimate one from 1968, Mrs. Robinson. I decided not to, just because I wanted to replace it with the song I'm going to play. But there's others. There's obviously the Kinks. There's Led Zepp. There's Roy Orbison. There's Van Morrison. There are so many other 60s acts that I could have played tunes from. Herman's Hermits, I think someone said earlier before. There's a heap that we could have chosen from. I've just found my 10 and I'm going with it. Now, this one may be controversial because it is, it's an interesting one because some people might think that this band should not really deserve any credit because they were kind of the first of the man-made bands, the TV bands, so to say. But again, they had some really cool hits. They had lots of hits in the 60s, and I'm going to play one of their tunes. And this is one that stood the test of time. It's been covered by a lot of different bands. It was in, I think it was in the Shrek movies, was it? Being covered by, I think, Smash Mouth. Am I making that up? Is that true? Someone look that up for me while I play this. But this is a song by a band called the Monkees from 1967. It's called I'm a Believer. I thought love was only true in fairy tales, meant for someone else but not for me. Love was out to get me, that's the way it seemed. Disappointment haunted all my dreams. Then I saw her face, and I'm a believer. Not a trace of doubt in my mind. I'm in love, ooh, I'm a believer. I wouldn't leave her if I tried. I thought love was more or less a given thing. Seems the more I give, the more I got, or less. What's the use in trying? All you get is pain. When you wanted sunshine, I got rain. Then I saw her face, now I'm a believer. Not a trace of doubt in my mind. I'm in love, ooh, I'm a believer. I couldn't leave her if I tried. Then I saw her face, I'm a believer. Not a trace, doubt in my mind. I'm a believer, yeah, 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 yeah. I'm a believer. I'm a believer. Can you tell that was one of the last songs that I actually learnt and practiced this week? Yeah, never really learnt how I should end it acoustically. Because it's one of those songs. Here's the other challenge with the 60s. A lot of songs just faded out. And it's not really an option to just fade out a song and just keep playing it when you're playing acoustically. So you kind of have to make up your own ending, which is what I did there. So there you go. That is the Monkees with I'm a Believer. And we've got some good things coming in here. Yes, it was Smash Mouth. There you go. Smash Mouth for the win. Hello Darkness, my old friend. Yes, that was the Hello Darkness, my old. That probably not one for the happy hour ponk, but yeah, I do love that tune as well from Simon and Garfunkel. Stuck in the 70s. Your voice is on fire tonight. Thank you. Great memories of my early youth when music began to be part of it. Yeah, and same for me. Like, I think that's the thing I was saying before, that if you grew up in the 60s, then these was your tunes. But if you grew up in the 80s, you probably had your family or your folks or your brothers or your sisters, if they're older, getting stuck into this. Here's a fun one from Jade. Yeah, don't give Reader's Digest your email or home address. They will find you forever. You'll have to check with mum and dad. Are you still getting the Reader's Digest you may have already won because they've got your name and address? Hopefully you've moved enough now since the 80s when you last would have got those records. But yes, right, it is hard to get off those once you're on them, for sure. Happy Ron says, Neil Diamond wrote this. Did he really? He kicked off in the 60s, didn't he? I've got a feeling in next week's 70s show, we're going to see some Neil Diamond. hear some Neil Diamond. Good Lord. Yeah, anyway, I think so. Medallion 58, yeah, it brings a smile to my face. And that's why I wanted to play that tune, because it does. It brings a smile to my face as well. Every time I hear it, like, it's just cool. Like the Monkees, seriously, hey, hey, we're the Monkees, or were they daydream believer? I love this show because here's what I had to do beforehand. I had to do a rehearsal yesterday and record all these and put them on YouTube to see if YouTube would actually block them. Now, I didn't test Facebook, so if you're watching on Facebook and suddenly the transmission stops, that's probably because they've cut me off. But I did test all these, and whilst YouTube will take all of the revenue from this stream and give it to the original artist, which I'm A-okay with, it won't block them, or not in my testing anyway. So fingers crossed for that one. Calvin, hello to you. Hi from Singapore. Hope you're doing well over in Singapore. I think that's 2 folks on the stream in Singapore. That's pretty cool. One of the songs from my early years too. Yes, hopefully this is bringing back some memories from folks from the years. 70s next week. Early request for some punk. The 70s is going to be interesting. Let me just tell you, I've already started some of the prep. Punk will be hopefully featured. A little bit of 70s punk. That was I was into the 70s punk more so in the 90s. But that's definitely a possibility. How I'm going to get some disco, some punk, some piano rock. Got your Billy Joel and Elton John that have to be represented. It's going to be an interesting time how I can get all these on my acoustic guitar. But we'll definitely give it a go. Righty dokie. We've come to the end. Can you believe it? That is an hour. That is an hour of singing and dancing. Well, not so much dancing. That's a singer. I've had less than half a beer. But there's an hour of memories, hopefully, for you. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hope it's been a bit of fun. Please tell your friends. Get them to check the replay. Come back for the 70s, because I know there's a lot of 70s folks lurking that are looking forward to hearing some tunes from the 1970s. And then, of course, 80s, 90s, and noughties, which is when I was actually listening to this stuff first release on the radio. So that's what we'll be jumping into there. But we are finishing off. I did allude to it before that we were going to play another song by the band of the 60s. I think it's safe to say. I know that some will argue, but to say that the Beatles weren't one of the most influential artists of the 60s, it's hard to kind of argue with that. So we're going to finish, and I thought this would be a very fitting song to finish with. You know it. You know the words. Sing along here at the end if you want to. Until next week, when we rock the 70s here on the Happy Hour, I hope you have a great week. Stay safe, stay well, and enjoy this last tune. Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better. Remember to let her into your heart, then you can start to make it better. Hey Jude, don't be afraid. You were made to go out and get her. The minute you let her under your skin, then you begin to make it better. And anytime you feel the pain, hey Jude, refrain. Don't carry the world upon your shoulders, for you well know that it's you, it's poo by making the world a little colder. Da 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 da. Hey Jude, don't let me down. You have found her, now go and get her. Remember to let her into your heart, then you can start to make it better. So let it out and let it in. Hey Jude, begin. You're waiting for someone to perform well. Don't you know it's just for you? Hey Jude, you'll do the moon bad. Take a sad song and make it better. Remember to let her under your skin. Then you'll begin to make it better, 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 yeah! Na, 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 hey Jude. Na, 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 hey Jude. Na, 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 hey Jude. Na, 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 hey Jude. Take care, folks. See you next week. Bye.